Hi, I'm Claire. Welcome to my pre-rehearsal warm-up video. So before I start any stretching or any other exercise, I always begin all of my warm-ups with light cardio. This is so that it increases my heart rate and gets my blood flowing so that my body is warm before I do anything else. My light cardio usually consists of a round of jumping jacks, and then I run in place, and then I go back to jumping jacks so that I'm changing it up, but I continue to keep my body moving throughout the whole exercise. I try to do about 50 jumping jacks in total, and then I run in between those until I feel like my body has been getting warm. Preferably, I like to run around, or if I can, run in a big circle, but I don't usually have that much room, so that is why I choose to run in place as a replacement, but I'm still running as if I'd be running around a room. After I'm done my cardio, I go into a series of leg swings. These leg swings are so that I can open and loosen up my hip joints and encourage the range of motion. I start my leg swings on the ground so that I am non-weight bearing, so that I can fully reach my full range of motion and work out the kinks in my lower body. But after I am done with my series of leg swings on the ground, I move to standing up and continue my leg swings, but this time I am weight bearing, and the standing up leg swings also challenge me to work on my stability and my balance when I'm standing up, so this will activate more of my core muscles as well as all the muscles on my standing leg, and yet I'm still opening up and encouraging the range of motion on my swinging leg. And after my leg swings, I just go into some light stretching so that I'm able to work out my hamstrings and I can stretch fully my hip flexors and put my weight over each foot to give that extra stretch. And I'm also going to do a little bit of light stretching on my quads, not a whole lot, just to stretch them out before I go into squats so that they are prepared for the squats. I do a squat series before my rehearsal because a lot of dancing that I've been doing requires a lot of strong quadricep work, and so I've been strengthening and awakening my quads before every rehearsal. So I go into this squat series. I do some squats, and these work on both my hamstrings, my quadriceps, and my glutes. And after I do my first set of squats, I go into this stretching. I roll down the spine and I go into a hip flexor stretch so that I can stretch those out in between sets. I put my knee down and grab my back leg to get the full quadricep stretch, and I try to press my hip forward so I get more of that lengthening and that stretching while I do this stretch series. And after I've stretched both sides of my hip flexors and my quads, I go back to doing more squats. And now that I have stretched out those muscles a little bit more, when I go into this set of squats, I'm usually more loosened up and I'm able to go deeper and work myself farther than I was able to do in my first set of squats. And that's why I like to do the stretching in between so that I can go back to the squats and then work them just a little bit more with a deeper range of motion than I was able to do the first time. And you see now I just go into just a little bit of pelvic press so that I can stretch out my anterior hip and quadricep muscles that were just going into deep flexion. And then I just go into some light demi-plies with some arm swings so that I can loosen and open up my hip muscles and the quads that I just stretched. I go into another roll down the spine, which releases tension and gets blood flowing throughout the rest of my body before I go into a push-up series. Although I'm not very good at push-ups, I do try to do them because they work my core, my arms, and my back, all things that I want to strengthen and that I will have to work in a normal rehearsal. So I try to do at least a few of them, or as many as I can do that day, and I'm working to eventually be able to do more. And then I just go into a stretching series after I've worked out my body more. I'm just going to go and relax over in the middle of my legs. I stretch and flex my feet so that I get both the stretching of my hamstrings and my quads and get the full stretch throughout all of my leg muscles. I put my head on both of my knees and forward. And this stretch works my groin, my hamstrings, my quads, and also stretches out my lower back, which feels good, and it also helps me work on the flexibility of my legs as I stretch out those muscles. And I relax forward, and then I roll back up into a sitting position and bring my legs together so that I can get another stretch, but this time just with my legs together, again stretching my back, my hip flexors, my hamstrings, and I flex and point the feet so that I also get more of a stretch. And then I just go into some foot exercises, non-weight bearing, so that I'm just opening and moving around the joints of my foot and ankle so that I waken and activate them before I continue moving. From here, I stand up and then I go into an isolation series. This will get all the kinks out of my body, and it also creates this nice dynamic warm-up that also works on control and isolation of different body parts. So I start from the top of my body, working my neck. I move my head from side to side and then around in a circle. I try to release my shoulders when I do that so I get a deeper stretch throughout my shoulders and my back and the different muscles in that area. And then I go into my shoulder isolations, which also work out the different muscles in my back and the front of my body, as well as in the different shoulder capsule. I roll my shoulders forward and then back and then around in a circle to get that deeper range of motion. From here, I go into my center isolations. So I press my chest forward, back, side to side, and then around in a circle. And then I go into my hip isolations, where I bend my legs so that I'm able to fully move my hips more. And then I bring my hips forward, side, back, side, and then again I move them all in a circle, and this will really awaken and help me move the different joints in my body and get used to that different motion throughout my whole body and create that dynamic control. And although it does help me move my joints and get my body moving, it's also so that when I go into rehearsal, I know how to isolate each different part of my body and I'm ready to move in that way. I roll up and down the spine, and then I stretch the sides of my body so that I can get that good lateral stretch on the sides of my abs and my back. And then after I've fully stretched out my back on both sides and I roll back down, I go all the way to the ground, where I then continue into an abdominal series. My abdominal series is very important for me because abdominals work all sorts of things, and my core is something that I work to strengthen so that I have better standing stability and also control. My stronger core can also help with my different balances, my turning, and just about every aspect of dance. But I start by doing a pelvic press up by lying down in this position. This will work my abdominals, but it will also work my hamstrings and my glutes, which are very important as well for standing and moving stability. I go over into a butterfly stretch before I go back down and start my full ab series. And then I start my ab series with the Pilates 100 because this not only helps my abdominals, it gets my arms moving, it makes my body very warm so that I'm able to work as hard and as deeply as I can. By moving my arms, it creates more dynamics and it helps work my arms as well as my abdominals and create that resistance with air and gravity. And this will fully activate my full core and help me strengthen that as well as waking it up before dancing. And after I am finished with the Pilates 100, I go into the bicycle. This is another abdominal exercise, but I'm switching my elbows with my knees, and this also works the different sides of my back and gets the top of my body moving as well, but keeping my core stable and activated as I continue this exercise. It is especially important to me that I work my core and my hip flexors and all my anterior muscles because I have an anterior pelvic tilt, so when I dance and stand up, I try to use all those core muscles to stretch and work it so that my pelvis is in alignment when I am dancing. And then I just go into a stretch which stretches those abdominal muscles and relaxes my body in between workouts. Then I just go into a downward dog so that I can stretch the back of my muscles from my hamstrings to my calves. I roll up and I'm gonna go into my calf exercise. So I go to the bar so that I have something to hold on to so I have stability and can focus on my muscles. I do releves in parallel so that I am working out all my calf muscles as well as my hamstrings and my core and my ankle muscles. I want my ankles to be strong as well as my calves, which will help with my ballet dancing and all the calf and footwork that I have to do within my rehearsals. And then I go into a one-legged releves where I have my legs still in parallel but bring the other leg into coupe. And I will do that on both legs in order to even out. Depending on how I'm feeling that day, I will either do more or less calf exercises, but as long as I do at least a few of them before every rehearsal, then I am working those muscles and strengthening them before dancing, which is very important to me. I go into a calf stretch to stretch out those muscles that I just worked. This will get all the muscles up the back of my leg and really work those out. I then use the resistance of the bar to go into a back stretch. So I really like this stretch because it stretches all the long muscles of my back and uses that resistance to create that extra stretch. And now I'm all set to move and groove and go into my rehearsal or class. Thank you for watching my video.